At just past the midway point of a very mid Ahsoka series, episode 5 teased quite a lot. But does it live up to the hype, or are we just overreacting? What's up, Nerdgenic Nation and fellow Star Wars enthusiasts, Aaron Waller here, and today I want to give my thoughts on the 5th episode of the Star Wars Disney Plus series, Ahsoka. This episode sees Hera searching for Ahsoka as she's going on her own personal journey of her past to learn how to adapt for the future and better train Sabine, if they can find her. This episode was also released in theaters as well, which I honestly thought was a bit of a bold strategy for a series that's for the most part been pretty mid, but after seeing the episode, I can totally understand why. The visuals of this episode far surpass most of what we've seen from anything related to Star Wars in quite some time. I mean, sure, The Mandalorian introduced a lot of groundbreaking technology in terms of how it's recorded, but it never really blew your mind because it wasn't meant to. The 5th episode of Ahsoka, however, was very much fully intended to blow your mind from a storytelling and a visual standpoint. The lightsaber battles had so much more behind them than any fight that we've seen thus far in this series, and just the raw emotion of not only seeing Clone War era Anakin and Ahsoka, and the parallels between the lines of dialogue from Clone Wars show and seeing how young Ahsoka's journey during the entire process was so crazy, because you know Ahsoka was so young, but when you see it in live action it completely changes your perspective of the character and what she's gone through in the series since being a child. And that's not even mentioning what was probably my favorite visual of the episode, which involved the Anakin Vader transitions, which I think was probably everyone's favorite, but maybe I'm just very biased on that. They were incredibly smooth and very reminiscent of the Obi-Wan Vader, as well as what happens in the season 2 finale of Rebels, and that in my opinion just only adds to the character's legacy and how it continues to get better and better, even though he's been around for so long. And then there's this stunning visuals that we get to see of the Clone Wars, the Siege of Mandalore, getting to see Captain Rex in the Maul Mandalorian suit were also incredibly epic. And the only real comparison that I can make with just how awesome it was and just how visceral it was with Rogue One, because that's the only real time that we've gotten to see such a ground level battle, and it wasn't even necessarily brutal, but you really felt the implications of war, which is something that I never really thought that I could feel in Star Wars, especially since Rogue One. And an even more mind-blowing aspect of this is that by the time all of this has happened and we finally find Ahsoka, there was still like 15 to 20 minutes left in this episode, which certainly left me wanting more, but I honestly think that this was just a massive Dave Filoni flex to what he really can do and will do and show us in his own big screen Star Wars stories. This was simply just a stepping stone and a test to see how it will fare. It's probably going to depend on whatever they're able to rake in from the box office perspective of this, but just the overall fan reaction, so far what I've seen has been incredibly positive, and if he does anything like this, it's going to be awesome. Though, sadly, there was no Thrawn, which I think only would have been the cherry on top of the Star Wars cake of this episode, and Filoni to really only dunk on everybody. But I think ultimately he just held that back for a greater aspect of storytelling in this episode, and just because he flexed so hard, he couldn't break our brains any more than he already did. Which leads me into my last and final point of the episode, which involved Jacen and the ending. Now in regards to Jacen, we all pretty much knew that he would be Force sensitive, but this episode more or less just confirms it, as Ahsoka was seemingly not in the world between worlds, but rather just having some sort of Force vision. But it would be Jacen who would point Hera and the rest of the rebelling rebels to find Ahsoka, which by the way I couldn't tell if he also helped Hera hear the lightsabers, or if they're just alluding to her having some sort of sensitivity to the Force, or if she was just simply trusting Jacen's instinct. I don't really know if they're going to end up touching back on this subject, but I have a feeling that it will remain a question for quite some time. But then there's the ending with Ahsoka and the Purrgil. And I don't really know about you, but it really felt like a cliffhanger ending that should have been with a season finale to tease that Ahsoka is off on her next adventure, or in this case season, to find Ezra and Sabine. Which maybe they were just playing up the whole theater experience angle, but it really felt like it was more of an ending to what's to come rather than a mid-season thing. But regardless of the nitpicks here and there, this was hands down and pretty obviously the best episode of the series so far. Filoni showed out, the actors and production flexed some serious muscle, and I have very little complaints about this episode, and I don't really think any real fans or even non-fans will really have anything negative to say, other than where has this epicness been for the past 4 episodes, and I really just hope that they don't let off the gas from here, because I know the next 3 won't be nearly as epic as this one, but they have a lot of ground to make up to continue telling this story in essentially Rebel Season 5. The only thing that I know is that my hopes are pretty high right now, and I just hope that they don't fall too low from here. But anyway, those are my thoughts on episode 5 of Ahsoka, and now I want to hear from you in the Nerdgenic community. What did you think of this episode? How did you feel about the Ahsoka and Anakin fights? What did you think of the flashbacks? Do you think that the ending felt a little bit weird like I did? Let me know your thoughts in the comments section down below, and while you're down there, be sure to hit like, subscribe, and ring the bell notification so you don't miss out on any future videos, as well as my thoughts on the next episode of Ahsoka. And also, don't forget to give us a follow across all social media platforms at Nerdgenic, that way you don't miss out on any special news, announcements, or articles at nerdgenic.com. But in the meantime, if you want even more video content from us, check out my thoughts on the previous episode of Ahsoka right over here, or for more Star Wars content, check out this playlist right over here. But other than that, thank you guys so much for watching, we really do appreciate it, we hope to see you in the next video, and of course, may the Force be with you.